Okay, picture this. You just get an offer on your home. The price looks good, but there's a line at the bottom asking you to cover $15,000 in closing costs. But before you say yes or no, there's something you need to know. Hi, I'm Chris Leeper with eXp Realty. I've sold hundreds of homes in the last decade, and I can tell you with certainty that seller concessions are back in a big way across the Inland Empire. Whether it's closing cost credits, home warranties, buyer's agent compensation, or termite clearance, these are all showing up in offers today. And if you don't understand how they actually work, you're either going to leave money on the table, agree to something the buyer's lender will flag before you ever get to closing, or provide more than was necessary to get the deal done. Let me walk you through the four I'm seeing most across Riverside County right now. The first is buyer's agent compensation. Since the NAR settlement in 2024, this is presented a little differently than it used to. Sellers used to negotiate with their agent how much to offer a buyer's agent for their compensation. Now it's negotiated by the buyer's agent with their buyer and typically shows up in an offer as a seller concession. As a seller, you're being asked to cover a cost the buyer has already committed to. Whether you do it and how much you cover is negotiable, but most sellers in Riverside County still offer some level of compensation because it opens the door to more buyers. If a buyer has to cover their own agent on top of a down payment and closing costs, it's harder for them to get to the table. The second common concession is a 1-year home warranty. This one covers major systems and appliances, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, water heater, kitchen, and laundry appliances for the buyer's first year of ownership. Standard plans in California typically run a few $100s for the seller at closing. That's a low cost relative to what it does. A buyer who's nervous about an aging HVAC or water heater is more likely to ask for a price reduction or push harder on repairs. A warranty can take that off the table before it becomes a bigger ask and provides the buyer a little reassurance on those deferred costs. The next concession on the list is a termite inspection with Section 1 clearance. When a pest inspector comes through, their report divides findings into two categories. Section 1 is active infestation or existing damage that has to be addressed, often required by VA and FHA lenders before a loan can close. Section 2 is conditions that aren't causing damage now, but could down the road. In Southern California, we're mostly dealing with termites, dry rot, and deteriorating wood from moisture and age. Work to clear Section 1 findings could mean spot treatments, full fumigation, replacing dry rotted boards, or some combination. Costs depend heavily on the property and what's found, but it can range from a few $100s for something minor to several thousand for more significant damage. Many sellers and agents discuss getting a termite report before listing your home. On one hand, getting it done early gives you time to handle anything that comes up without the pressure of an open escrow. However, on the other hand, once you have that report, you have a legal obligation to disclose the findings, even if the buyer hasn't specifically requested a termite inspection in their offer. It's a conversation worth having with your agent before you make that call, because the right answer depends on the property. The last concession I want to talk about is the big one, closing cost. This is the concession making the biggest comeback right now, and there's a reason for it. With rates where they are, buyers are cash sensitive. A closing cost credit lets the buyer reduce what they have to show up with at closing instead of paying those costs out of pocket. Every loan program has its own cap on how much a seller can contribute, and it's set as a percentage of the sale price. FHA, VA, and conventional loans all have different limits, and conventional caps scale based on the buyer's down payment. Sometimes you'll see agents try to get creative when writing an offer by offering over list price and asking for that amount back in the form of closing cost credits. It's typically referred to as stacking. This can work sometimes, but you have to be careful about accepting a price that is higher than what the property can appraise for. Appraisals are ordered by the lender as a term to the loan. The lender will only provide a loan on the appraised value of the property, not what the buyer wants to offer. If the appraisal comes in for less than the offer price, the buyer either has to come up with the difference in cash, or the buyer and seller have to renegotiate the offer amount and closing cost credits, which may not work for both parties. This could blow up the deal entirely. Now, here's the part that catches many sellers off guard. Everything I just described gets negotiated when the offer comes in, but there's a whole other round coming. After you accept an offer, the buyer hires a home inspector and any other inspections they choose. Once they receive all the reports back, the buyer decides what they want to do with it, whether that's asking for repairs before closing or asking for a credit so they can handle things after they take possession. That repair credit request is its own separate concession ask, and it comes after you've already committed to whatever you agreed to up front. If you've already given a significant closing cost credit and are contributing to the buyer's agent compensation, there may not be room left to also absorb a repair credit. Repair requests can range from a few $100s to well over $10,000 depending on what an inspector finds and the extent of the damage. This is another big ticket item that could kill a deal if not handled well by all parties. This is where who you're working with matters more than most sellers realize. An experienced agent isn't just looking at the concession being asked for upfront. They're thinking about what room you need to hold for what comes after the inspection, how to structure the initial offer so you're not getting squeezed twice, and how to communicate with the buyer's agent in a way that keeps the deal moving without giving away more than necessary. That's why it's equally important as a seller to make sure you are transparent with your agent on any issues with the home, past or present, that could affect the value and desirability of the property. This way, your agent knows what to expect and how to position the home in the best way possible. The best concession is often the one you didn't have to give. Knowing when to hold, when to counter, and when a request is legitimate versus a test of what you'll agree to is one of the most concrete ways a skilled listing agent protects your bottom line from offer through closing. If you want the full breakdown in writing, including what to think through before your first showing, the article's linked below. And if you've got an offer in front of you right now, call me. I'll run the numbers with you and make sure you're not leaving anything on the table. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you later.